More than likely, that's because we have very low estimated growth rate for Delta. Let me see. Analysis. Southwest is expected to grow about 13% over the next 5 years. Delta, on the other hand, only 8%, not much. I'm not sure the PEG number reported in FinanceYahoo.com is proper, because if their forward or trailing PE is around 7-ish, estimated growth rate is 8, you're not going to get a PEG ratio of 39. I mean, there's something wrong there. But if I wanted to calculate some sort of uh, time value adjusted payback period, which is a growth adjusted payback period, I would discount future projected earnings of Southwest at a lower rate. Why? Delta is a much more leveraged company, they're riskier. So even if they are expected to make more, I need to discount the future earnings at a lower rate, at a higher rate. All right. Now, ideally, you would kind of stop there. First, I'm going to talk about two ratios that are of some use when earnings are negative or zero. When there are no earnings or earnings are negative, any kind of PE ratio is meaningless, because we view PE ratio as some sort of payback period, right? So when earnings are negative, that interpretation does not apply anymore. If EPS is not positive, one ratio people use is price to book ratio, where PB is price divided by book value per share, or P over BPS. Let's call this BPS. All right. I mean, let's look at those, for example, for Southwest and Delta. For Southwest, that's 1.70. Remember, book value of equity is book value of your assets minus your liabilities, right? You can think of book value of equity as if you were to liquidate the company right now and people would pay for your assets exactly what they're valued in the books, that's how much money company would be worth. That is not the market value of equity. So market basically says, I'm going to attach a 70% premium to the book value of Southwest's equity. On the other hand, the same number for Delta is 246. So market attaches 146% premium to the book value. Well, that's kind of, whether or not price to book values can be used for comparison purposes depends upon the nature of the assets. Remember, book value of equity is book value of assets minus liabilities. Book value of assets are booked at their historical cost minus depreciation. You know, certain firms have older fleets, airlines. If you have an older fleet, you have higher depreciation. Or, you know, you may be a company where Instead of outright owning a plane, you lease them. Not a capital lease, but an operational lease. That way, you don't charge any depreciation. You don't have that much assets. So if their depreciation policy and that sort of stuff is different, comparing book values of even firms in the same industry is not necessarily a kosher thing to do. So I would never buy or sell, make buy sell decisions based on price to book comparisons, even of the firms in the same industry. If there are firms in different industries, all bets are off. Even let's say NVIDIA versus Microsoft. Well, NVIDIA is a hardware company, so a lot of their assets are depreciable assets. On the other hand, Microsoft is a software company, so price to book comparisons are not that good. The only time price to book comparisons make quite a bit of sense if you're comparing banks, then it's okay. Sometimes book value of firms are also negative, and I'll give you an example. Let's do American Airlines statistics. Price to book doesn't apply. Why? Because the book value of equity for American Airlines is negative. That's primarily because of the big charges they took during COVID years, which they haven't made up for them yet. In that case, if EPS is also negative, people use price to sales, which is price divided by sales or revenue per share. Again, this is somewhat of a I don't know anything, let me find a way, maybe I can compare them. If firms have similar, what you want to call margins, yeah, you may be able to do that. But, let's say you compare, I know they're not in the same industry, but you compare NVIDIA with Starbucks. NVIDIA has a gross margin of 75%. For every $100 of sale they make, they get to keep 75 before worrying about other expenses. Starbucks is about 30. Okay, so comparing those based on price to sales is not meaningful. You're comparing a lime to a grapefruit. Okay, yes, they're in the same family, but nobody would ever mix up a grapefruit and a lime. It's not just the taste; it's the size as well. Our third objection to PE type ratios are affected by when comparing firms. Leverage and role of share of non-operating expenses. That's not what I wanted to do. How did I even manage to say that? Let's say I'm comparing NVIDIA and Microsoft based on some type of PE ratio. It may even be a growth adjusted one. Okay, it's okay. But one of the problems is, as I just mentioned, NVIDIA has a lot of non-cash expenses. A, they have depreciation because they have hardware. They're a hardware company. And B,